Okay, so there's a Christian pastor, so-called Christian pastor from Sacramento, California, and in the wake of the Orlando Massacre, the worst attack on LGBT people since the Holocaust, basically, since the Third Reich. This guy, Roger Jimenez, has actually come out and said he thinks it's a pity that more, in his word, pedophiles didn't die. Um, and he had this disgusting sermon in which he was basically praising the mass murder. Now, being a card, he's went on the defensive and claimed that the media has taken it out of context, and he hasn't been calling for murder and so on. What this exposes is that, firstly, there are Christian fanatics out there. This massacre was committed by a Muslim fanatic, but there are Christian fanatics out there who are all too willing to condone it. It doesn't matter if this guy is saying that he's not calling for other massacres. To to degrade the victims of this atrocity by comparing them to people who abuse children, it's disgusting. Let's just remember this was young people on a night out. Among the victims were young people who were hoping to go on to become firefighters, paramedics, a wide range of different endeavours in life, and they've all been cut down in their 20s and 30s. And for this, frankly, piece of shit to condone it just defies belief. I want to retract something. At the beginning of the video, I said so called Christian. I retract that. He is a Christian, but he's an extremist Christian. Um, I will say one thing. I've had outspoken views on how I feel that whenever there is a massacre committed by Muslims, there's always too many people who deny it and want to say, oh, they want to deny the existence of Islamism. I will say one thing. There is double standards in the United States in terms of how people are portrayed. Now, some might say, well, making a sermon isn't the same as the action itself, and technically it's not. But there are double standards in terms of extremism. For example, last year when Dylan Roof, the white supremacist, went into a black church in South Carolina and shot dead 9 people, that's pure terrorism. What we've just had in the UK with the assassination of the MP Joe Cox, what was an act of terrorism, and all the reports suggest the guy that done it has far right links. So we have to be consistent in condemning violence, and we have to be consistent in considering that when there is acts of political violence, if we consider what Omar Martin done to be terrorism, and I think most people would accept that that's what it was, there has to be a consistency. Now, this pastor is a fundamentalist Christian, but it exposes a real paradox in their thinking because the founder of Christianity, Jesus Christ, was, by all accounts, one of the most benevolent people ever to walk the earth. There could be a debate about the historiosity of Jesus Christ, but let's, for the sake of argument, say that he was a historical figure. What bugs me about these fundamentalist Christians is they're so unchristian in their attitudes, um, in their callous, cold-blooded disregard for human life, and this notion that it's completely okay to kill 49 people because they were gay or lesbian or transgender. I can't begin to fathom the mentality that condones that. And the disturbing thing is there are a lot of people that support this pastor. There's probably more who don't support him. I mean, on his video, he's blocked comments because he's a card, but on his video, there's far more thumbs down than thumbs up. The thing about America, the First Amendment is the First Amendment. It's the most sacred of all the amendments, although the Second Amendment is certainly one of the most vocalized. But the right to freedom of expression. Um, I wonder, should there be some analysis to what extent the free speech debate is something that we talk about in all democracies. We have it in the UK as well. But when there is explicitly condoning of violence and even advocation of violence, that to me is going beyond just expressing an opinion. Now, am I saying that people should be arrested for glorifying this massacre? Not necessarily. I think that would be problematic. But they should, at the very least, be face the absolute weight of public criticism and vitriol. Yeah, it's disgusting. I mean, to just say these statements, I can't imagine the pain that would cause to the families of those young people who were murdered. It's abhorrent. In some new developments, the current wife of Omar Mateen has been investigated for possibly knowing that he was going to carry out this massacre. A quick word: some people are saying he's gay, so that means it's got nothing to do with Islam. That's a lot of crap. Just because he may have been gay, and we're still not entirely sure about that. It may have been. Doesn't mean anything. There are many, many examples of people who have been brainwashed into hating themselves. So the fact that he may have been a gay Muslim, firstly, there are gay Muslims, um, but it really is irrelevant to the fact he carried out this act. And, what bothers me is that when Muslims get annoyed with being tarred with the same brush, and I totally understand the frustration with that, but you can't make the implication that 1.6 billion people are good. Okay, just as it is wrong to demonize all Muslims as terrorists and so on, it's it's equally misguided to say that all Muslims are good because they're Muslims and they're therefore not capable of doing bad things. Omar Mateen was an extremist Muslim. Roger Jimenez is an extremist Christian. That does not mean they represent all Muslims or Christians, but let's stop pretending that they've got nothing to do with religion because they very clearly do. And I can understand the atheists getting angry and say, well, wait a second, don't put them in with us by saying they've nothing to do with religion. Um, a quick word, by the way, about the incident in the UK. Britain First are being hypocritical because they're saying, oh, this guy had nothing to do with us. And that's dubious at this stage because photographs have emerged with the suspected killer, Tommy Mayer, being photographed at a Britain First rally. But anyway, they're complaining about all being tarred with the same brush. Well, wait a second. That's exactly what they're doing to Muslims. Britain First doesn't even attempt to differentiate between Islamists and just normal Muslims who want to get on with their own life. There's a few things that come from all these tragic events. Firstly, you cannot generalize people. Secondly, yes, there are religious extremists, and you cannot pretend that they've got nothing to do with religion. And thirdly, if you claim to be a Muslim or a Christian, you need to be aware that if you are spreading out hate, if you're condoning violence and so on, that is going to give your religion a bad image. I mean, I get that extremists don't really care, but to those moderate Christians and moderate Muslims, and I know that term's a bit flimsy, but let's just say to those who don't condone mass murder or murder, what I would say is I understand your frustration, but simply getting defensive and say, oh, it's got nothing to do with religion won't change the problem. What you should be doing is just condemning them and not only condemning them, but actively speaking against them. It's no good just saying that other people will stop blaming all of us, getting a defensive posture because that won't solve the problem. You have to acknowledge that this is part of religion. Yes, it's a distortion. And yes, for example, this pastor may be taking the most extreme verses of the Old Testament and taking it literally or whatever, but there has to be a platform for people to criticize religion. And I'm getting tired of this idea that religion is blameless. Religion is very, very, very far from blameless. The Quran and the Bible are full of violent surahs and psalms and so on, and this is indisputable. People can say, "Oh, well, you're misinterpreting it, or it's taken out of context or whatever." But in the end of the day, some people are going to take that literally, and this is irrefutable. So my closing point with this pastor is a disgrace, and he should receive all the flack he gets. He should be vilified. He should be stigmatized because what he is saying is disgusting. It is adding insult to injury for the relatives of the victims. In terms of legal repercussions, that's a more complex issue, but It's disgusting what he's come out with, and he's not the only one. There have been other pastors who have said similar things. Um, and to any Muslim viewers who are watching, no, I'm not Islamophobic. I have explicitly said that we shouldn't generalize all Muslims, but stop pretending that Omar Mateen had nothing to do with Islam. That's just misguided. He was an American Muslim, um, but you can't deny that there was religious zealotry involved in this, a deep hatred of LGBT people. That's irrefutable. That was why he carried out the massacre. In the end of the day, he pledged allegiance to Islamic State. Now, whether he had direct orders or not is unlikely. I very much doubt Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, called up his cell and said, carry out this massacre. But ISIS has been promoting lone wolf terrorism and basically saying to Muslims in the West, it is your duty to do this. The vast majority of Muslims see ISIS as scum, and the vast majority of Muslims in the West, would not behave this way, but you cannot pretend that some will not. Religious extremism is a fact. It's time to acknowledge that.